All right. Welcome back, everybody. We've got a really interesting deep dive to get into today.
Yeah,
I'm excited about this one.
me too.
So today we're going to be looking at the life and experiences of Asif Kapadia.
Okay.
Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, who is that?
Yeah.
Well, Asif Kapadia is a British filmmaker.
Uh-huh.
He's actually best known for his documentaries, like the Amy Winehouse documentary, Amy,
Right.
and the documentary about Ayrton Senna, the race car driver. Senna, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a really, really interesting documentary.
I've seen those.
Today, we're going to be looking at something that happened to him personally,
Okay.
rather than his work. It's based on an article from The Guardian and a couple of interviews as well.
Okay.
So we're going to take a deep dive into Asif Kapadia's life and look at this event that happened to him and see if we can maybe connect it to his work. So the story starts with Kapadia taking a limo ride through New York City.
Oh, okay.
And he's on his way to the airport. And he's looking out the window, and he's just kind of captivated by the view.
Yeah.
And who isn't?
You think about New York City, you think about the skyline, right?
Yeah, that's got to be.
It's such a
like a movie.
It is. It's
Yeah.
very cinematic. So he's looking out and he starts taking some pictures,
Uh-huh.
just with his camera. And everything seems fine until he gets to the airport.
Oh.
So he gets to the airport, he's at the Virgin Airport Lounge,
Okay.
and suddenly his name is called over the loudspeaker.
Oh, wow.
And he's told report to, security. So it's like, okay, what's going on?
Right. What did he do?
So he goes over there, and it turns out that it's Homeland Security that's waiting for him.
Homeland Security.
Yeah. And so he's kind of like, what? Why?
Yeah.
And it turns out that his limo driver had reported him for acting suspiciously.
What?
Yeah.
Taking pictures.
Taking pictures.
That's suspicious.
Well, apparently so.
Yeah. The driver, for whatever reason,
Mm-hmm.
thought that Kapadia was acting strange.
Just taking pictures of
Taking pictures of the skyline, yeah.
skyline out of a limo. I mean, you see tourists doing that all the time,
I know.
right?
You would think that's pretty normal behavior.
Yeah, especially, a filmmaker. Like
Right,
that's
that-
part of what he does.
Right. You would think that they would maybe be a little more understanding
I would think so, yeah.
of that kind of behavior. But anyway, he ends up being questioned by Homeland Security in the airport lounge.
Oh, no.
And he talks about this experience. He says that he's like the only person of color in the lounge.
Okay.
And he has all of these officers around him, questioning him,
Oh, that's got to be uncomfortable.
emptying his bag,
Yeah.
checking his stuff.
Oh, wow.
It must have been so embarrassing. I mean, can you imagine that? Just,
I mean, I'd be mortified. Like, everyone's staring at you,
yeah, you're in the airport lounge.
thinking
Right.
you're going to, relax,
Yeah, exactly.
have a drink before your flight, and then all of a sudden you're like the center of attention.
Exactly. You're the criminal.
Yeah.
It's got to be awful. Now, the article mentions that this happened in the early 2000s.
Oh, okay.
So not too long after 9/11.
Right.
And of course, everyone knows airport security was crazy back then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They really cracked down on everything.
Yeah. I mean, I remember it being pretty intense.
Oh, yeah.
So
They were stopping everybody for everything.
yeah, I mean, you couldn't even bring a bottle of water through
Yeah.
security. So
So it was probably just, heightened security measures.
right, but it makes you think, right?
Yeah.
Like how much of this was just standard procedure because of the time,
Hmm.
and how much of it maybe was influenced by, other factors
You mean like, you know what I'm saying?
like profiling and stuff.
Yeah, maybe. It's hard to say for sure.
But it definitely makes you think about, how people are perceived, especially in those kinds of situations.
Yeah, especially back then.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
who knows what was going through that driver's mind?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to, excuse it or anything, but like, it does make you wonder,
Yeah,
right?
it does. So this incident at the airport, as you can imagine, was pretty traumatic for Kapadia. And the thing is, it didn't end there.
What do you mean?
This actually led to him being placed on a watch list.
Ah.
Yeah. So for the next 10 years,
10 years.
10 years, every time he traveled to the U.S.,
Wow.
a red light would go off,
Seriously.
and he would be pulled aside
Oh my
for
God.
additional screening and questioning.
For 10 years.
10 years.
Just for taking pictures.
Just for that one incident.
That's crazy.
Unbelievable. He talks about how it, made him feel watched,
Yeah.
paranoid, and, I think
Yeah.
it's easy for us to just hear that
Mhm.
and just kind of, be like, oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
But, like, try to actually imagine what that would be like For 10 years.
Every single time you travel.
Every time you travel. You're going through that stress.
That anticipation.
Yeah, the anticipation of like, is this going to be the time that they
Yeah.
that they detain me,
Yeah.
that they pull me aside
Yeah.
and really interrogate me?
Yeah, are they going to let me in the country?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's got to mess with you.
Yeah, that's going to mess with your head.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It would mess with anybody's head.
Yeah, especially if you're like, innocent.
Exactly.
And you haven't done anything wrong.
You haven't done anything wrong.
Yeah.
And to live with that for a decade?
A decade.
It's crazy.
That's a long time.
Yeah. And it gets even weirder.
Weirder.
How? So at one point, Kapadia was working on a film project.
Okay.
And this project was with Universal Studios.
Okay.
So like a big Hollywood studio.
Yeah.
And guess what? He needed them to write him a letter.
A letter. For what?
Vouching for him.
Like a reference.
Yeah, basically like a character reference.
So you could travel?
So he could travel to the U.S. without any issues.
Seriously?
Yeah. They had to say, hey, this guy's okay.
That's wild.
He's working on a film with us.
That's unbelievable.
Don't give any trouble.
I mean, what is he, like a high-profile director or something?
And yeah, he's a well-known filmmaker.
And he still needs to get a letter.
He still needs that letter from Universal.
Wow.
Just to be able to travel freely.
That is so messed up.
I know, right?
It's like they're punishing him.
It is.
For something he didn't even do.
Exactly. And the crazy part is he's making films that are being seen by people in the U.S.
Right.
So it's like on the one hand they're consuming his art.
Yeah.
But on the other hand they're treating him like a suspect.
Yeah. Like he's some kind of threat.
I know.
It's so hypocritical.
It is. It's just crazy to think about. So this whole experience that Kapadia went through with being placed on the watch list and having to deal with all of this scrutiny, it really got me thinking about his work.
Oh, yeah.
And specifically his latest film.
What's it called?
It's a sci-fi film called 2073.
2073. Okay.
And it's set in a dystopian future.
Dystopian future. Uh-huh.
Where surveillance is everywhere.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And control is like the main theme.
Right.
So it's hard not to see the connection between his own personal experiences.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And what he's portraying in this film.
Yeah.
Like, is it just a coincidence? Or is he trying to tell us something?
I mean, who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But it definitely makes you wonder, I think, when you're making art, it's almost impossible to not be influenced by the things that you've experienced.
Yeah, it all comes out.
Yeah, it all comes out in some way. So
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see how these themes of surveillance and control play out in 2073.
Right. And I mean, this whole thing with him being on the watch list,
Yeah.
it adds another layer to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, for me, I haven't seen the film yet, but just knowing that about him, it already makes me think about the film differently.
Yeah, it makes it more real.
Yeah, exactly. It makes you question.
Yeah.
Like, is this just entertainment?
Yeah.
Or is this like a warning?
Right? Like, is this what our future is going to be like?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're in the UK, 2073 is opening in cinemas on January 1st.
Okay.
And I would definitely recommend checking it out. I'm going to see it.
Yeah, I think I will too.
And I think it's going to be even more powerful.
Yeah.
Knowing, what we know about Kapadia's life and
Yeah.
his experiences.
It puts it in a whole new context.
Exactly. So I want to leave you with this. Think about how your own experiences
Yeah.
shape your view of the world, whether it's art, whether it's, your relationships, the things that you create. How much of that is informed by the things that you've been through?
That's a good question. I'll have to think about that.
Yeah. So that's something to ponder as we head into the new year.
There we go.
So that's it for today's deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Sounds good.